Hey, this is Dave with Brazos Barbell, and today we're going to be talking about bench press again, but today we're going to be elaborating on the previous video that I made about your setup and technique and everything that goes into that. We're going to be focusing more on bar path and some of the finer details like positioning of your elbows, your wrists, your grip width, and really some of the mechanics that you can use to optimize some of the musculature, but really just get the most out of your bench press. So some of the details before we really jump into the videos is going to be some of the terminology, some of the cueing that I use specifically with the elbow positioning. So if I say lead with the elbows or elbows in front of the bar, most of the time what I'm talking about is the elbows being slightly closer to the hips than the shoulders relative to where the barbell is. So if my elbows right now would be directly underneath the barbell, I'd say that I want your elbows slightly more under the bar or in front of the bar, meaning this way closer to your hips. So differentiating that between in front of the bar and tucking is going to be a big deal. One of the cues I use a whole lot with most of my lifters is going to be unwinding. I use that instead of the term flaring. I think flaring works well. I think flaring is the terminology that most people understand. But unwinding, I think, makes a little bit more sense and is a little bit more purposeful in the case of bench pressing. So we're saying the same thing is if I'm winding and unwinding in the bench is on the way down, I get my elbows in front of the bar, and then unwinding on the way up. So wind and unwind on the way up, and that's where the flare is going to be taking place. The difference, I think, in most people's minds would be that the unwind is purposeful, where the flare is going to be almost accidental. So it's the same thing. Unwinding is going to be a flare, but I think just if we call it the unwind, we're doing it on purpose, but we can say we're flaring on purpose. So we'll jump into the videos now, and we'll see these things in live motion and how to execute all of them. Okay, so we're going to be going through one of my workouts. This week was a deload week, so this workout really isn't very stressful or anything, but I think it gives a good opportunity for the video so that I can demonstrate some good technique here. But I guess before we really get started, if you haven't seen my bench press setup technique video, this is a good opportunity to plug that one. A lot of these things are going to go into actually being tight in the first place. As far as the actual forces at play here, Greg Nuckols has a really, really good article, a how-to on how to bench press. So I'll put that in the bio here, or the description of the channel. But read that one if you want to know a lot more what's happening with the muscles. But I'll go over just some of the practical stuff. So right here, we're going to all rewind and go back to the beginning of what's happening with the empty bar. But right away, we can see that when I'm initiating by bringing my elbows in front of the bar. Now, this is one of the points that I think may have a little bit, I guess, personal preference, in that I really like to put my elbows under the bar, closer to my hips, like I just said before. This position allows me to press the bar back at the rack a little bit better and unwind a little bit more successfully right here. So if my elbows are directly underneath the bar, it makes pressing the bar back at the rack a little bit more challenging. So let me put some lines on here. So, and we'll be able to see these a little bit better from a different angle going forward. But if I'd say this position would be where my elbow would be if it was directly underneath the bar, where here my elbow is a little bit in front. But what that does is it allows me to press the bar back at the rack a little bit better. But immediately off my chest, my elbows will, so this is on the way down, and then here on the way up, my elbows will unwind and get back underneath the bar pretty much instantaneously. So let me go through these. Okay, so another point with the empty bar is going to be wrist positioning. This one I coach in the same way, being that I actually prefer to have my wrists slightly broken, and we can look across at my offhand over here. We may see it a little bit better, but over here it's going to be the same thing. I think if the wrist is too perpendicular or too vertical, perpendicular to the ground, whatever, but too straight, I'm not going to be able to put enough force going back into the rack well. So again, this position with my wrist being a little bit broken will optimize me being able to get the bar quickly back at my shoulders. So again, this is going to be personal preference, and I actually generally think that the wider the person's grip is, the lower they touch, the more the grip is going to be acceptable to be broken. But both of these go into, I would just say, the style that I use with the elbows closer to the hips and the wrist being broken. I get a lot of leg drive. I sink the bar in my chest and allows me to fairly violently press the bar back at my shoulders, my neck, whatever, back at the rack, and get the bar moving back up. So another component to this will be that the wider your grip is and the more arched you are, that actually goes together. So the more arched you are, the wider your grip can be. As you get flatter, it just becomes really challenging to have that super wide grip and have it be successful. It's going to end up being too demanding at the very bottom. I'd say it's the same argument as sumo versus conventional, would be that it makes the bottom of the lift much more challenging the wider you are. But with the arch, we still shorten it and we gain advantage there. So the flatter you are, you may have to use a little bit more of a conventional grip, maybe ring finger on the ring rather than maximum grip. So all those things, it's going to take a little bit of a combination, but the wider your grip is and the more arched you are, the lower you can touch. So we can see here I'm touching maybe even my top ab rather than my sternum or pecs or nipples or whatever we're looking at. So as your arch gets bigger, this touch position can get a little bit lower, but we'll move on. So those things are important. I do think that a vertical forearm down here at the bottom, we can see it. A vertical forearm would be maybe right here rather than my forearm being underneath the bar. I think that's acceptable, but the lower you're touching on your body, the more emphasis you're going to have to put on pressing the bar back at the rack. So we can see the unwind happening here. So depending on where you're touching, the forearm angle may change a little bit. But I think it's advantageous to bring your forearm under so that we can press it back a little bit better. Just a different angle, still that 135. But here's a good position where we can talk about my cueing going to be leading with my elbows. On the way down, the bar path should be straight. So there's no J or anything like that happening. It's taking a very short, straight path from where I'm starting to my chest, but I'm drawing a line there with my elbows. So if I start here, we'll say that my elbows from here, we're going to draw that line, and the bar should follow kind of right along with it through both of those. You see how my elbows are starting that position. And we'll do that one more time there so we can get a good look. So the elbows really dictate where on my body that I'm touching. If I wasn't able to keep my elbows in a good position and stay tight, if I was getting loose and my elbows were getting too close to my hips, I might be dumping the bar back onto my chest, then that wouldn't be an optimal position for me to be in. So lead with your elbows is going to be the first cue as far as finding where you can descend to. That almost takes care of the touch position on its own as far as how low you can touch. If you can't get your elbows there and stay tight, then it's just going to be too low. So moving through some of these sets, when we get into the top sets, I actually mess one up, which may be good for illustrating some of these things. So leading with my elbows and then driving the bar back quickly, and it'll take a little bit of a J path. So we'll look why this doesn't look exaggerated later, and this is going to be another one of the finer points as far as where I can hold the bar over my chest. But what the bar path should look like is going to be a little bit of a J path, being that it starts here, it's going to go in a straight line down, and then it moves back first and then up. So this should look the same on all of my presses. I'll see if I can leave this on here. So in my 365 singles, I do it twice because I didn't do a very good job on the first one. Here in a second. But this is going to be a mistake that we talk about later, is that I say back first, but it's really back and up at the same time. But we have to emphasize the back portion. So let's go through this. All right, lead with my elbows, straight line on the way down, and then everything goes back and my elbows flare and unwind and get back underneath it. So the cue as far as leading with my elbows works really, really well on the way up as well, is that if I led with my elbows on the way down, if I led with my elbows drawing that straight line towards my belly or wherever I'm touching on the way down, if I want that bar to get back, my elbows need to get back quickly as well. So if they stay tucked, I'm just not going to get the bar back very quickly. And if you encourage everyone to read that Greg Nuckols article, you're not going to be able to use your pecs very well. And I'll elaborate a little bit on why that happens. So at the bottom position, the more your elbows are underneath the bar, the more the bar is displaced away from your shoulders, closer to your hips or closer towards your belly. that's more work required from your shoulders. Now, here we go. All right, so this was a rep I didn't like very much. I didn't press it back enough. So if some of you follow my stuff, you've been dealing with a little bit of a pec injury. So this one was subconscious. I'm protecting it a little bit, so I'm not unwinding enough because I'm afraid to get the bar back onto my pecs too early. And my pec has been hurt a little bit. It's doing okay now, but this was me hesitating a little bit to unwind. So on the way back, I don't get my elbows, I don't get the bar back quick enough. I'd say right here, my elbows should be vertical already, and the bar should be displaced further than what it is. It just hung too far over my stomach in this position. I think I should already be back from right here, and this one was a little bit slower than I would have liked. So I knew I was taking the video, so I did it again to demonstrate it a little bit better. Okay, so this one I do a little bit better. I knew I messed it up, and I just tried to commit and hopefully not have my pec just tear or something, but we're all good. Okay, so lead with my elbows, and on the way back, I really emphasized pressing the bar back quickly and letting my elbows unwind and lead the way on the way back up. So they get back, and that speed was a whole lot better in my mind. Okay, so through the working sets, I'll be able to demonstrate this. I was a little bit more deliberate about making sure we're showing it. So right there, my forearms get vertical almost immediately. So let's go to this position. So here, my forearm is directly underneath the bar, where at the bottom it had that little bit of an angle. We'll replay. See, it's angled, and then it gets back underneath it almost immediately. So going through some of these different angles, I think we can see it pretty well, that my bar path on the way down is going to be pretty straight and pretty short, leading towards my belly. In this case, because my arch is pretty good, I can touch pretty low on my chest. And then as I press up, we'll see that how quickly, just right in here, this is where we see it really well, that I'm deliberately unwinding and flaring with my elbows to get that bar to start moving straight. So we can see all these reps that once I get it back, it straightens out, right? My forearm is back, and then there we're just moving straight up. I'm not pushing the bar back anymore. So later in the video, we'll talk about common mistakes, and that's gonna be a common mistake that people, once your forearm is straight, you need to be pushing up and not continue to push the bar back. We should be done with that at that point. So some of the cues that work really well from this point. I think the thing that people are mostly afraid of when we say flaring, I'll redraw that one, is that people are concerned with what's happening with their shoulders. So one of the big cues, actually two that go together, is I want to pull my chin into my chest, and we can see that position right in here really helps bring my chest up and stay nice and tight. Also, I want to keep my shoulders down away from my ears. So when I'm flaring, I'm not letting my upper back lose any tightness. So through this bench, even though my elbows are unwinding and flaring, my shoulders always stay in the same position. If they were rising up and going towards my ears, that would be where the problem and the danger in your pecs comes in. So, danger in your shoulders being hurt comes in. So here's a really good position or a really good video that can illustrate what's going on with my bar path and all of that, and the rotation of my elbows. This right here is probably one of the biggest errors, or one of the most easily correctable positions in the bench, is going to be that this is where my shoulders is now when I'm arched. I think a lot of people hold the bar back way too far. They're holding the bar back over here rather than just holding the bar straight above their shoulders. So here, when I'm flaring, I just want to flare back to this position and not flare back all the way. My elbows shouldn't get up to my ears. My elbows should get up to this position even with my shoulders. And so holding the bar, I tell people to hold the bar further over their belly or further over their chest rather than hold the bar over their neck. I am pressing the bar back at the rack, back at my neck, but not past that original position, not past the position that has my arms nice and stable, nice and stacked. So this position will be able to utilize your lats a whole lot better, keep your shoulders down, and really everything stable. So again, your lats aren't going to be a huge driver in what makes the bar move well, but they're going to do a really good job of keeping your chest up and your shoulders stable. So as soon as I initiate, we can see that my elbows are leading the way that whole time right there. And then as I press, this is a big problem where people have at the bottom of the bench, if the bar, I'll say that the bar gets dumped. If I say the bar gets dumped, the bar is further towards my hips than what my elbows would be. That's going to make it impossible for you to get the bar back well, and then we'll miss it. Here, hopefully the bar is here and my elbow is in this position. This makes it very easy for me to transfer force back and then up first. So we'll go through that. So bar ends up there and everything is pushing back and out. My elbows unwind. Okay, so hopefully that was pretty clear. Hopefully it'll become a little bit more clear with some of these common errors. So the first one is going to be that people move too much at the top. So this one right here, we can see that compared to the last video, the one just from the bottom side right there, I'm stopping way too far over my face and neck. This position is way too far. So the movement needs to be shorter. I should be, at this point, my elbow should be out and I should be locked out directly above my shoulders rather than continuing to push the bar back of the rack. This is just way too much wasted movement, just unnecessary, and we're going to be inconsistent. I mean, that's going to be a big part of it there too. So just inconsistency, way too far back and forth. I need to limit that range of motion or just limit that movement. Another big one, and I did this on accident, I hit the rack pretty hard, but this illustrates the purpose here, is that I'm pushing back for too long or back too fast. So we'll see in this one. Let's go down to the bottom. All right, so as we play, if everything is just moving way back, I think my angle is something like, let's see here, I think the angle starts off way too flat before it gets up. It needs to be more like a 45-degree angle as it goes up. So this is a big mistake when we start coaching to press the bar back, and people don't really understand it. They press it back more so than they're pressing up. They need to be happening simultaneously. I need to be violently pushing the bar up while using my elbows and my legs and everything to get the bar translating back towards my shoulders, but I still need a whole lot of vertical force. So pushing back too much right there is just unnecessary. It still needs to be pretty natural. So last mistake is going to be over tucking of the elbows. So here, what we really want as far as being able to utilize your pecs is going to be a lot more of a vertical forearm. If I get way too tucked right here, it just makes it to where my shoulders, my front delts are going to be way more involved than they should be, or they're just going to become much more of a limiting factor, and that my pecs are not going to be able to move this weight well. So what we want to find with any position is going to be a good balance between what muscles are being used. I want to utilize my front delts. I want to use my pecs. I want to use them both in a way that maximizes the strength of each other. So here I'm tucking way too much, and here I'll fix it in a second. Is that get set, and then at the bottom of this position, my elbow is still much more under my wrist rather than being really tucked. So that's differentiating between if I say elbows under the bar or lead with your elbows rather than tuck your elbows. So tucking your elbows is not really a good cue, and may be necessary to tell people to tuck if it just helps that makes sense to them. But they don't need to be close to your sides. They just need to stay underneath the barbell to be able to translate it back. So last video here is just going to be what I think would be a really good position. See if we can slow it down. So lead with my elbows, maintain that good relationship from my elbows to the bar, and then press back and we'll immediately unwind. My elbows immediately start moving back. But you can see that there's a lot of that bar moving straight up and back rather than moving only back or only up. It's happening together. And here's my aggressively unwinding with my elbows to get it back on top of my shoulders, not necessarily all the way back on top of my neck. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel. See you next time.